IMF Outlook and Status of Jobs. The IMF's latest World Economic Outlook has underlined that employment growth is likely to lag output recovery after pandemic. Why has job growth been slow and what are the concerns for India? Last week, the IMF unveiled its second World Economic Outlook WEO. The IMO comes out with the report twice every year, April and October, and also provides regular updates to it on other occasions. The WEO reports are significant because they are based on a wide set of assumptions about a host of parameters such as the international price of crude oil and set of benchmarks for all economies to compare one another with. What were the main takeaways from the WEO in October? The central message was that the global economic recovery momentum had weakened a tad thanks largely to the pandemic induced supply disruptions, but more than just the marginal headline numbers for global growth, it is the increasing inequality among nations that IMF was most concerned about. The dangerous divergence in economic prospect across countries remains a major concern. Aggregate output for the advanced economy group is expected to regain its pre-pandemic trend path in 2022 and exceeded by 0.9% in 2024. By contrast, aggregate output for the emerging market and developing economy group, excluding China, is expected to remain 5.5% below the pre-pandemic forecast in 2024, resulting in large setback to improvements in their living standards, it stated. There are two key reasons for economic divergences: large disparities in vaccine access and differences in policy support. But possibly the most important takeaway from the WEO this time is about the employment growth likely to lag the output recovery. Employment around the world remains below its pre pandemic levels, reflecting a mix of negative output gaps, worker fears of on the job infection in contact intensive occupations, child care constraints, labor demand changes as automation picks up in some sectors, replacement income through furlough schemes or unemployment benefits helping to cushion income losses and frictions in job searches and matching, IME stated. Within this overall theme, what is particularly worrisome is that this gap between recovery is output and employment is likely to be larger in emerging markets and developing economies than in advanced economies. Further, young and low skilled workers are likely to worse off than prime age and high skilled workers respectively. What does this mean for India? As far GDP is concerned, India's growth rate hasn't been tweaked for the worse. In fact, beyond the IMF, several high frequency indicators have suggested that India's economic recovery is gaining ground. But what the IMF has projected on employment, that the recovery in unemployment is lagging the recovery in output, matters immensely for India. To begin with, according to the data available with the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, the total number of employed people in the Indian economy as of May-August 2021 was 394 million, 11 million below the level set in May-August 2019. To put these numbers in larger perspective, in May-August 2016, the number of employed people was 408 million. In other words, India was already facing a deep employment crisis before the COVID crisis and it became much worse after it. As such, projections of an employment recovery lagging behind output recovery could mean large swaths of the population being excluded from the GDP growth and its benefit. Lack of adequate employment levels would drag down overall demand and thus stifle India's growth momentum. Why could employment lag output growth in India? There are several possible reasons. For one, as mentioned above, India already had a massive unemployment crisis. Labor economists such as Santosh Mehrotra, who is visiting professor at the Center for Development Studies, University of Bath, cites a number of additional issues. The first thing to understand is that India is witnessing a K-shaped recovery. That means different sectors are recovering at significantly different rates. And this holds not just for the divergence between the organized sector and the unorganized sector, but also within the organized sector. Mehrotra said he pointed out that some sectors such as IT services sector have been practically unaffected by COVID while e-commerce industry is doing brilliantly. But at the same time, many contact-based services which can create many more jobs are not seeing a similar bounce back. Similarly, listed firms have recovered much better than unlisted firms. The second big reason for worry is that the bulk of India's employment is in the informal or unorganized sectors. The informal worker is defined as a worker with no written contract, paid leave, health benefits, or social security. The organized sector refers to firms that are registered. Typically, it is expected that organized sector firms will provide formal employment. So, a weak recovery for the informal, unorganized sector implies a drag on the economic's ability to create new jobs or revive old ones. Last week, IMF chief economist Geeta Gopinath pointed out that the number of people using the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act provision was still 50 to 60% above pre-pandemic level. This suggests that the informal economy is struggling to recover at the same pace as some of the more visible sectors. How informal is India's economy? Table 3 sourced from the 2019 paper measuring informal economy in India gives a detailed breakup. It shows two things. One of the share of different sectors of the economy in the overall gross value added. Two, the share of the unorganized sector therein. The share of the informal unorganized sector GVA is more than 50% at the all India level and is even higher in certain sectors, notably those that create a lot of low skilled jobs such as construction and trade, repair, accommodation and food services. This is why India is more vulnerable. Thank you.